Welcome to the POMcast with Stephen Willis. Now we're going to do things a little different. We are going to provide an honest look at Ole Miss athletics for the fan, by the fan, and of the fan. That is what we do. Hell be to me. I'm just kidding. Tune in for some Ole Miss sports news. We're going to give it to you straight. Yeah, right now. The POMcast starts now. It happens now. Holy cow. Listen to me. It's starting. Well, it's going to start right about now. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Friday, December 18th. Hope everybody is doing well and preparing for a fine weekend. We made it here. It's the What to Expect from LSU episode. We actually made it. We're here after like 77 weeks off. We made it. But that's here. We're going to talk about today opt-outs. Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah opted out for the LSU game. That's fine. I mean, that's everything this program does is about recruiting, and basically the opt-out that they did is also going to be about recruiting. Also, you can't be mad at players opting out if you do not pay them. If they're there on their own free will, you can't blame them for opting out or keep them from doing it. I mean, that's a fact of the life. Just the way it is. So, we'll get into that in a little bit, and we'll get into LSU a little bit, and that's what we're looking at. We might have like a little early signing day review again. Like Quay Davis signed yesterday, slot wide receiver out of Yeboah Community College. Guy's a true burner. He really is. He's going to kind of be hell to deal with out of the slot. So between him and J.J. Henry, there might not be any position that we've recruited more substantially than that one. So that's something to look forward to. But before we get started, I do want to tell you that if you want to follow us, you can at the Stephen Willis or at Ole Positively. Or if you want to catch us on Facebook, you can see us at facebook.com/POMcast. And join our Facebook group at Positively Ole Miss. Thank you again for doing that. And, of course, you can join us on YouTube, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and that way you'll be notified whenever we start streaming in the future, which is something that'll happen fairly quickly, like April timeframe. And if Twitch is your thing, you can catch us on Twitch at Positively Ole Miss. That's 4 video channels, 4 ways to watch. Here for you. We are where you already are at. Also, if audio is more your thing, you can catch us on a plethora of podcatchers out there, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, SoundCloud, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and Pandora. Those are just the major ones. We are also on some minor podcatchers. But if we name them, it would take up the whole show. So do that, subscribe, follow. You can rate us as well. Doesn't matter what you say. You can call me an asshole if you want to. Just do it with 5 stars, please. And that is basically the beginning of the podcast. We're ready to go. So Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah opted out for the LSU game for the rest of the season and the bowl game. What does that mean? Well, everything the staff does is recruiting. And what this does is puts out a player-friendly vibe to recruits. They obviously recruit well. They know what the recruits want. They relate really well. They're going to use this. That's the reason they did all those flowery things, saying goodbye. It's all about recruiting. It's all about helping out. And they want to help us out too, or else they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't post that. But they want to go the time of year they would be reporting to D1 or somewhere to get ready for the NFL draft. And you don't want 2 more opportunities right now to get hurt, because you should have already completed your quota, so to speak. The SEC championship game was supposed to be December 5th. We're 2 weeks past that. And there's another game to go in a bowl game. So those 2 players are highly draftable players. It's a recruiting tool. That's what it is. That's why they released the flowery thank you letter on Twitter. If you notice, the recruiting class, they were expecting those guys to go. It's like leaving a party a couple of minutes early before it really ends so everybody can see you leave. It's recruiting. And until you pay athletes, you really can't complain whenever they do this, because they are the ones that have to look out for themselves. They are the ones that are tasked with doing it, because nobody else is. A coach can process them. Before this one-time transfer was passed, their movement was followed by you have to sit out a year. But their coaches can go anywhere they want, whenever they want. It's not a really equitable system, but it's getting there. Now, I understand you want to keep it amateur athletics and all of that for reasons that you follow it, for whatever reason that is. What I'm trying to say is it's kind of a youth thing. But you got to be careful. If you're not paying athletes, they need to be able to just stop playing whenever they want to. It turns into freedom of movement, but people think that you have to do it. And you also see things like opt-out means quit. Well, this season should not have been played. Think of all the hurdles that the players had to go through just to play this season. No social life. The college experience that everybody talks about is nil. And why volunteer for more of that if you don't have to? Elijah Moore is a potential first-round pick. And good for him. Good for Kenny Yeboah as well. We're going to find a new slot, as you can see. We've recruited well. We're going to recruit a tight end, Hudson Wolf, and we're probably going to get a grad transfer. It's going to be fine. All right. POMcast. Thanks for listening. Stick around.
Only 10% of us get enough daily exercise.
And that number is dropping.
Nearly 30% of us are overweight or obese.
We spend 6 hours a day in front of a screen.
As a result, we now have a shorter life expectancy than our parents.
But give us the right start in sports, and we'll never stop.
Learn how at active4life.ca.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis from Positively Ole Miss. We're almost done with this break. We'll be back with good information quite soon.
The military has been in every generation of my family, and so has VA. It wasn't easy for my dad after Vietnam, but VA helped him and my mom get the home they'd always wanted. My grandpa's been coming to VA since World War II. They even helped him lay to rest one of his battle buddies from Normandy. And me, I followed in their footsteps and served with pride. And now that I'm out of the military, the GI Bill's helping me with school. Every generation of my family has served, and VA has served us all.
All right, POMcast, Stephen Willis, thank you for listening. In the first segment, we went through all the different ways you can listen and watch, and if you made it this far, that means you heard it, likely. So, glad to have you here. This is the Friday What Will LSU Do episode. And I tell you, and this one kind of hits close to home for me because obviously I'm a huge Ole Miss guy, but I actually worked for Ed Orgeron, so I kind of know how his mind works. I spent a couple of years with him. And what you're going to see, since they struggled defensively at the beginning of the year, you got a bunch of guys that are going to play with hyper energy, much like the first game, which means they are going to be susceptible to screens and reverses and things like that. But look for an active defensive line. They may not have the personnel to run a 4-3, but they're going to try really hard, and it's going to be an active defensive line from LSU. Lots of slanting, lots of games, things like that. If you don't know what a game is, like a tackle in move is the end coming inside and the tackle swooping around him. It's just different ways to confuse a blocking scheme. That's a game. Lots of active blitzes. Remember, Ed Orgeron, at his heart, is a defensive guy. And he got his feelings hurt last year when John Rice Plumlee and Jerry Ely ran all over him. I mean, he just did. So this year, he's going to come out with a little bit of fire. He's going to, try to motivate them one last time. But the LSU players know this is their last game. Last year, there was still playing for a conference championship and a national championship, and all that stuff was still out there. Well, it ends at 7 o'clock on Saturday for them. There's no bowl game. They want it over. But they're going to try. And through Ed Orgeron's will, and it is considerable, and that's something he needs a little bit of credit for. He's not going to let them kind of give up unless Ole Miss jumps on him. Then he doesn't really have a chance. Then he's just going to yell for a couple hours and it's just going to drown out. But defensively, it's going to look for an active front. I think they're going to send a linebacker to get a pass rush on most downs, especially passing downs. And their secondary is weak. They're last in the SEC in pass defense, and that's with Derek Stingley back there. So that tells you how bad they've been. And although it's going to be a little easier with no Yeboah and no Elijah Moore, they still have to deal with Braylon Sanders and Jonathan Mingo. It's like a preview of next year, basically what this is. This is like an extra spring practice. Remember, I told you at the beginning of the year, you got to treat this season differently or you will drive yourself mad. You just do. It was like a 10-game spring practice, and it's all about developmental skills. I mean, you use it for developmental purposes. And Ole Miss has 2 games now, 2 games, where they don't have Kenny Yeboah or Elijah Moore. This is before the new class comes in. It lets you know what you got. Now, Ole Miss wasn't going to play for anything. If they win the game, there's a chance they're down in Florida at the Outback or down in the Gator. And if they lose, they're at the Music City or the Liberty. So it's either Tennessee or Florida, depending on this game. There's not really consequences as the second game not happening. Somebody's going to invite them. They want them. And with Auburn going 6-4 without a coach, they're not really desirable. I mean, you've got Alabama, Florida, and Texas A&M in the New Year's Six and playoff. You've got Georgia in the Citrus. After that, who you got? Auburn won 6 in the West. Missouri won 6 in the East. I mean, Arkansas is down, LSU's down, Mississippi State's down. I mean, Ole Miss is a legitimate 4th in the West. And Kentucky's down, Ole Miss beat them. Tennessee's down, Vanderbilt's down. Let's see, I think South Carolina's down, so Missouri would be 3rd in the West. So it's between Ole Miss and Missouri for that Outback. If Ole Miss loses to LSU, it's probably going to go to Missouri because they're probably going to be a couple of games better at that point because I think they're going to win this week. But that's what we're looking at. And you need to go into a situation with realistic views. Now, will Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah make a difference? Yeah, in the LSU game they might, but not necessarily for the season. The season's already happened. I mean, they've already had a signing day for next year where Ole Miss signed, 23 players or something. There's a player, Malik McLean's supposed to announce today. He could sign today as another 4-star player, a wide receiver out of IMG down in Bradenton, Florida. I mean, that's possible. It's between Ole Miss and Florida State. If Ole Miss gets him, it's another 4-star on the pile. They're moving closer to the composite number 17 to where, it's a realistic possibility to catch him should Taiwan Malone come. So that's kind of what's at stake this weekend. It is not much. It's not a bowl game at stake for Ole Miss. There's still another game for Ole Miss next. You just don't know if it's in Tennessee or Florida. Now, LSU, it's over. It's time to go home. It's ready for, Christmas is in 6 days. They're probably going to treat this like this is their bowl game. But we saw last year how that worked. Them treating, 2 years ago against Mississippi State, treating that like a bowl game. So that's the key. I just want to let you know. This Elijah Moore and Kenny Yeboah, it's a weird season. It's fine. If they want to leave, it's December 19th. It's a crazy late time of year to be doing this. This is after Army and Navy have played. I mean, they should be in lower tier bowl games at this point. This is late, and you're trying to get paid. You're trying to maximize yourself to get paid, and waiting another week wasn't in the card because I hate to break this to you. You probably tweeted it from wherever he's going to work out at. He's not in Oxford. After he opted out and decided to do that, I mean, this was all orchestrated. He's not in Oxford. He's not practicing this week. They knew all week. They practiced without him. They practiced without Kenny Yeboah. This means that Jerry and Ely is going to be the focal point of the offense. This means you're going to see Jerry and Ely playing some slot. And, I mean, it's going to be cool. We get to see it. It's like a spring game against LSU. We get to see what we have for next year. Now, there's a couple of players that are seniors that are going away that, I mean, that's fine. But you get to see where you are at a position like slot and tight end. Those are two active positions that we recruited really well for. So I'm just saying that it's going to be okay. It's all about recruiting. That's the reason they do all the flowery stuff. It's all about PR. Because how you are perceived and the narrative that is out there is, we saw during the probationary how much that could hurt you. That taught us about PR. That taught us to maximize every event to get our benefit. I mean, it's pretty cool. And I am just ecstatic to play LSU. I'm ecstatic. Nobody could do a better job of turning around the fan base and the attitude of the fan base like Lane Kiffin over anybody else. Nobody else could do that, but he did. He did a pretty good job too. Now the next step for us will be taking back the narrative from I'm going to put it up there, our journalists that are pretty constantly trying to get us pissed off and control the narrative that way, because anger sells subscriptions. People need to realize that. Anger sells subscriptions. That's what they want. Their most valuable time is during a coaching search. So they want us to change coaches as often as possible because it's good for them. Just remember that. That needs to be in the back of your mind. It needs to put a light and context to whatever they're saying. It is in their personal interest to make us angry. Just remember that. All right, Steve Willis, segment 3. Stick around.
You want to answer that, don't you? I bet it's just killing you seeing the soft glow just inches away. Someone wants to tell you something or ask you something. Oh, come on, answer it already! Just so we're clear, that wasn't my fault. Next time, ignore your inner voice. Don't text and drive. A message from Florida's trusted choice independent insurance agents.
Hey, this is Stephen Willis. I just want you to stick around a little longer. We're going to get back to the podcast right after these messages.
Tonight, nearly 40,000 veterans across the country are homeless. These men and women have pledged to serve our nation, and now we must serve them. Landlords across the country have helped make significant progress in reducing veteran homelessness by making housing available, but there is more that we can do to bring our veterans home. Visit www.va.gov/homeless to see how you can get involved. And if you are a veteran and you are experiencing homelessness, please call 877-4AID-VET. Thank you.
All right, POMcast, Stephen Willis, thank you for listening. It's actually just a good day. Just a reminder, next week we will be doing the show from the road at the old Nashville studios as we're visiting, getting ready to visit family for Christmas. We will not have a show the week after Christmas. Unless Ole Miss has a bowl game, we might do a We've Got Notes. We'll take the equipment there, but don't expect one to really happen. We've already passed November. We've done growth each month in September, October, November, and December. We've already passed November, so thank you very much for that. And we're growing pretty much exponentially at this point, so that's pretty exciting. That really is. That shows me that a lot of people are basically in this to follow football the right way, to know what is honestly happening. Again, we're never going to ask you for money. We're never going to ask you to go to a second location. And we're going to try to be straight with you because we're not in it for anything. We've already made our money. We're doing this for free. And there's benefits to not relying on that. Are we going to sell ads? Yes, in April we are going to sell ads, but they're going to be minuscule. They're going to be keep the lights on ads, not let's try to get rich off you ads. That's what we're trying to do. We're talking about $50 a month. That's nearly 25 shows for $50 a month. I mean, that's something else. That's the price of a Big Mac to have an ad for your business on the show. That's what we're thinking about. We're also thinking about several different ways, and any way we can undercut ad sales for other people. That is the plan. Because people do not need to be trying to get rich off you, and they most definitely do not need you pissed off. So this will serve that purpose as well. Again, all right, what would LSU do this weekend? On offense, Max Johnson, he's all right. He really is. He's not great. He's a true freshman quarterback that's fairly good. He is Will Rogers like. He's fairly mobile. He's 6'5". He's a lefty. They got some young wide receivers that's fairly quick. And again, Jamar Chase and Jordan Jefferson aren't out there. And their running backs are beat up. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire is not coming through that door either. So people see LSU and they assume last year's LSU, which, again, the most important part about it and what made them so hard to defeat was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. That he got Joe Brady a job in the NFL by himself. Everybody talks about Joe Burrow being the number one pick. Yeah, that's great. It's the versatility and what Clyde Edwards-Helaire brought to the game. But we just need to rattle him. We need to show him a bunch of looks. He's obviously pretty good at the corner blitz, throwing it over the top. Maybe you can bait him that way. Because he is a true freshman. If he starts thinking, it could go downhill really fast. Ask TJ Finley. I mean, that's the way it's always been. If you can get the true freshman thinking, the true freshman is not effective. If they're making one-read passes and doing all that, you can catch them from time to time. Our secondary has turned out to be pretty good towards the end of the year. We gave up a 400-yard game against Mississippi State, but that was all on Deacon dunking down the field. So, and a miraculous one-handed catch and some kind of pre-Hail Mary that they called it. But the point is, in the defensive backfield, they've done pretty well. So I expect LSU to try to come out and replicate running the football. And we've struggled against old man football this year, there's no doubt. But if Otis Reese and now Jacob Springer, if he is available, I haven't got confirmation. Nobody has asked. It's amazing. All these, quote, journalists are not doing their job. They're not getting questions that need to be asked answered. They're probably going to ask Lane if he's going to go to Auburn again. Try to piss you off. That's what they do. Remember, pissed off people buy subscriptions. And all they are is just a salesman. They're not even, that's why not being a fan of your team, it allows them to use you. It gives them an avenue for that to happen. So be very careful and be wary of what's going on. And because it's just not worth it. This has been one of the most enjoyable college football seasons of my life. I'm 45, of my life. And I got there by not subscribing, to cutting them off. They're gone. There's no need to do it. Because all you do is, for that $10 a month, is pay for the message board and their opinion. That gives them control of the narrative. That gives them control of you. And your fandom is what suffers. And you see all around the country, attendance is down. Surprise. 20 years of this crap. But there's nothing we can do about it. That's kind of what we expect LSU to do. We expect old man football on offense and movement, an active defensive front, and an aggressive front seven. So that's kind of what you expect. Anyway, thank you very much. We survived this week. Remember, next week we are remote in Nashville and off the week after that. Have a great weekend. Hotty toddy.